Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. I'm Joe. This is my little channel, Random Computes. This one, we're messing around with the i7-880 that was in the previous video. This time I slapped a much better cooler on it, overclocked it to 4 GHz, and paired it with my most powerful graphics card, which is the RTX 3070. So I can stretch its legs as good as it can. Let's just see how well it works in 2021. Alright, let's check this out. In the last video I got a comment suggesting to do a better job explaining the parts that I used, and after watching the video again, I couldn't agree more. So here's a breakdown of the parts that I used. The star of the show is the i7-880. It was released in the second quarter of 2010, making it over 11 years old at the time making this video. It is based on the 45nm architecture and was codenamed Linnefield. With 4 cores, 8 threads at 3.06 GHz, it has a thermal design power or TDP of 95 watts. As for the rest of the parts, we have a 16GB kit of DDR3 RAM clocked at 2000 MHz. The motherboard is the same asrock P55 Extreme 4 from the previous video, and of course the graphics card is the Overkill RTX 3070. For the overclock, I tried to manually dial it in and failed. I'm not that good at overclocking, so I just used the motherboard's overclocking settings. I first tried 4.2 GHz, and while most games and programs were stable, I did see some blue screens. I tried a few manual tweaks and wasn't able to fix it. 4 GHz was the fastest I could get with my limited overclocking experience. I didn't have to change any settings for that, and just the motherboard settings worked for it. As for the RAM, I just selected the 2000 MHz profile and it ran perfectly. I wanted to start this off with synthetic tests, so our first round we have Cinebench R23. Did this test a few times, once with no overclock. The second time was with an overclock and with the Spectra protection enabled, and then finally our last test was with the overclock and the Spectra protection disabled. We see a very impressive increase of 66%. If you look at the processor in the 11th place, you'll see that we did get beat by 11th Gen i7 that is clocked at 1.69 GHz. Nice. And that was only pulling 15 watts. That should give us some perspective, but don't be too discouraged. It is 11 years old at this point. The next test was Cinebench R20, since that was the one that I ran in the last video. Today we managed to get a score of 1515, which is, in the last video we got 1062, which that's another impressive increase, this time at 42.5%. Okay, moving on to the games. All games were tested at 1920 by 1200p and at max settings. I put them in the order of the oldest to the newest, and I put the year and the title in the corner there just for a reference. I plan on adding a few games from 2010 just to show how well this i7 ran in its era, but it was just such overkill at the time it didn't really make any sense, and it already made this long video even longer. I was planning on talking about each game and how well they ran, but I highly doubt any of you want to hear me fumble through my poorly written script and just have me saying how well they ran. So let's just have a blanket statement for all the games. They all ran great. Some had a clear bottleneck at the CPU, as expected, but some actually maxed out the 3070.
When you splash on my windshield! Insurance fraud!
one, fight!
Shit! Get back! On the foot! It stings! Get back! I'm burning up!
You're going there.
Alright guys, this video has gone on long enough, and if you made it this far, I'd like to thank you. As far as this i7 goes, it still has some life left in it. Even after 11 years, it can still run the newest titles, and run them quite well. It obviously gets its ass stomped performance-wise by other newer models, but not by enough to have to upgrade yet, at least from what I've seen in my test. But for the $100 asking price, I wouldn't go out and buy one of these. If you already have it, I would hold on to it for a little longer if you're okay with missing out on newer features like bootable NVMe support, PCIe 4.0, and also native RGB controls if that's your thing. I had a great time playing around with this setup. It's kind of a shame it's been sitting on the shelf for the last couple of years and I had no idea what kind of power it had. This entire video was edited on this processor, and it's not as smooth as my 5950X, but it's not that bad either. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this one. We are up to 120 subscribers, and that's just insane. I was expecting to max out around 10. Just some family and friends, doing a sympathy sub. But thanks guys and gals. I know 120 isn't that much, but it's more than I expected. If you're not already subbed, please consider doing so. If you liked the video, hit the like. If you hated it, that's cool. You know what button to hit. If you have any suggestions for another video, comment below and let me know. I'll gladly make it if I can. There will be some videos to the left and to the right. You might find those interesting. Thanks guys and gals. Have fun.